But we still have some balance to talk about. There's still plenty more to go over.
Right.
And the next section we're going to get into is items.
All
There's a
right.
lot of
There
those
you
in
go.
Smite, and the team's been cooking again. So y'all just can't leave y'all
we
alone.
say.
Every time we took our eyes off y'all, we look back and you're like, we did stuff with items. So I mean, I guess we'll just dive right into it. Starting off with just some balance and some of the usual work of y'all making
A
things
necessary one, I
better.
think.
That's something.
All right.
Well, Mr. Soliner, would you like to get into it?
Get into
Yeah,
Equinox.
you guys can blame me if you want if Equinox was healing a little too much at certain periods. So yes, we've decreased the change you get in from hitting a minion to now you're getting just only 1.5 times that amount when you're hitting a god. 2 times was a little much. We did all see the clips of, a Bologa and Osiris just hand off the keyboard, holding left click and just
Ducky
boxing
going
each
to
other.
sleep.
Yeah, Ducky going to sleep in his bed. So that shouldn't be as possible now. A lot of healing reduced from that item from when you're hitting gods. Overall, we felt it was in a decent spot in the jungle. It brought some auto attack junglers back into the meta that were previously pretty far outside of the meta because Jotons and Hydras was dominating. So we accomplished what we wanted with this item. We're making some adjustments now that the Bologa and Osiris and to an extent Erlang and some others have kind of taken over the meta. So we're scaling it back a little bit, but you can still purchase it. It's not weak by any means necessary.
Yeah.
It's just
Don't like that you
a little more
accomplished what
balanced,
you
yeah.
wanted.
Minorly
with that item.
toned down to not be
I
absolutely.
don't like
Yes.
that.
Yes,
I don't
So,
like that answer.
You mentioned Jotuns in that talk, and it looks like the Jotuns 3-piece is kind of getting a little adjustment.
Yes, this is kind of a related but separate discussion here. It's going to be a discussion about junglers and also mid
Jones
laners
Wrath going
in kind
up
of
is
a
fine.
way. So
Jones
we've been
Wrath
seeing
has
a
been
pretty homogenous
the only item you buy in
build come out
jungler
of
for
physical mid laners and
25
junglers
years. It's
especially.
fine,
So we're trying to just kind of switch up what this early game build is going to look like. Usually it's your Jotuns and your Hydras. Sometimes it's Jotuns Trans or the other way around. But essentially we are nerfing Jotuns and Transcendents to kind of encourage a more equal play for both other classes, whether that be mages and mid, or other builds, whether that be switching up the order, switching up what you're buying in that slot. We just want to see a little bit more diversity there. So these few items are just going to get a small price increase, slow them down a little bit, not be as efficient as Insane. And then Transcendence, of course, is getting a little bit of decreased mana.
Yeah.
So that's going to also translate into its passive, which translates into power.
Yep, that's right. It means less damage, and Jotun's costing more gold means you're going to have technically less damage because you have less gold to spend on new items. So yeah, just overall a reduction in power and damage for
Transcendence
mid hunters
nerf is a little
especially,
weird
and
to
then
me.
hopefully more diversity.
don't
Just
see
like
a
we were
lot
talking
of
about with Equinox, more diversity in the jungle builds as well.
People
Because I
buying
think I haven't looked at the
Transcendence
data actually
is
now
a
that I
weird
say
one,
this, but I
but
think
Jotuns
probably
for
one of the
sure.
most popular second items to build is Jotun Rast in the entire game. Obviously
Yeah.
not including support items because that's a little more set in stone, but pretty much every jungler is just buying Jotun's second item, and then with the mid hunters buying it as well, it's time for us to adjust that item. So that's what we've done. If we see some resistance in that people still just want to buy
more
Jotuns, then perhaps we can
mid
look at
hunter
adjusting
related
other
for the
items to make them
Chiron
more
Marty
an attractive
AMCs.
option.
And we have some of those as well, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. So
Still a little
next
weird.
up, it looks like y'all might have pondered the orb a little bit. 2 of them, Cursed Orb and Doom Orb.
Indeed.
Yes, this is along the same lines. We already understand that Doom Orb and Cursed Orb are like go-tos. They're very good early game staples. But here's the thing. They're not priced like early game
Not at all.
staples at all. And that is, again, something that is
Okay.
kind of pushing them away from
Weird.
that mid-lane presence.
did
Is that
just
you
buff
want to go Doom Orb because Doom Orb
the
is a good
best
item. It's a great
mage
item.
item
You just can't
currently
get it
being
before
bought.
Jotun's Wrath comes online for those physical characters.
I'm just
So it made it very, very
I'm-
difficult.
I just-
so we are kind of
I know
playing
we're
into
just
that
starting on
to
the item
try
balance,
to, you
but
know,
I just-
decrease that gold differential of what it was
It's
before versus
it's clear that the
20,
team working on
300
Smite 1 is
basically
very
to
inexperienced.
2700 is a lot closer than it was before.
Very
still
inexperienced.
2700 you could say is kind of a pricier item for that first item slot, but it
Yeah.
has a lot of flat pen on it, so we couldn't bring it down too much. But now it makes sense that it's a little bit cheaper because of that flat pen. So you want it early, and now you can afford it early too.
Yes.
Makes sense to me. So Cyclopian Ring also looks like it had some of its stats adjusted.
Yes, this is throwing it over to the magical ADCs who
That's
have also
fine.
been struggling.
That's fine.
We see
See,
you
there we
magical
go.
players,
Sure.
definitely.
Nobody
We hear it.
buys that
So
item.
we are
Nobody's
just
really
making
playing
them a little
the
bit
mage
stronger here.
ADCs.
A little bit of
There
extra
you
mass
go.
health
I
damage,
like
a little
that.
bit of decreased cooldown
There you
on
go.
the passive. So again, it'll come online a little bit faster because you're not really requiring as much attack speed to get that passive going as quickly. So it's going to feel very nice to be able to proc a little bit harder and a little bit more often.
Yeah, I think as well. Speaking about item procs, we'll see more of that later. You
Yeah.
can maybe buy this item on some new gods as well. But definitely, I
It's
think
a
the biggest
Souls
thing here
buff,
is the
it
cooldown
is.
reduction because remember
Soul
your auto
solo
attacks
buff.
reduce that cooldown even further. So getting those 2 seconds off actually might bring it to one or two auto attacks earlier than what you would have had it before.
Yeah.
So it's a significant damage increase on this item.
Nice. Always good to see. So Bancroft's kind of the Bancroft's three-piece, being one of the next in line to have some stat changes.
Okay, that's
little
fine.
ones.
So Bancroft's is an item that you typically like want to get early if you're getting lifesteal, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a nice, very good stat boon to have. But it is just a little bit expensive. We wanted to bring it down again to kind of keep it competitive between physical and magical, essentially, is the TLDR of that. But if we move on to Nimble Bancroft's talents, and this is the spicy one, I think. We are now adding basic attack power per passive stack. So again, this is translating power into attack speed, and now additionally basic attack power as well. So the more that you get, you're getting even more
really
basic attack power. So it's going to build on itself a little bit, which is very nice.
Yep.
Very spicy.
By the
Because we did the
auto-attack
cost reduction on
mages.
Bancroft as well, so it has to come off of Bancroft's
could
floor
be
as well. So
fee
even
strong.
flat 3,000. So I think, maybe we'll see some more magical ADCs building Cyclopian Ring, and then with the early game Bancrofts, upgrade it later on until Nimble, and then all of a sudden your
Clanger
build's coming
Banger is
together,
loving
get cheaper
that
and more
for
damage.
sure.
This
He's
could even
loving
be for
these
your
changes.
Anubises or your Hadeses as well that are getting a nice little bump here as well, because
He's
we've definitely
loving
been
these
keeping an eye
changes.
on lifesteal characters in general, and we want to make sure that those
Heck,
guys
he
are
likes
getting
to
some
do
up
more
too.
change, you
Rock and
know?
roll. All sounds good. Now we're out of the realm of beautiful magical items a little bit, and onto the real problem solver, hammers.
What really
Blackthorn,
matters, yes, back to the solar lane.
Oh man,
Blackthorn hammer.
I can hear your no, I'm joking.
Well, I can talk about this one because
Yeah.
it kind of relates to what we were talking about with Equinox before in terms of build diversity and god diversity in the lane. We brought back auto attackers quite heavily with the Equinox introduction, nerfing that a little bit now and then doing this small buff to Blackthorns as well. Blackthorns generally bought on things like Achilles, Tyr, more of your ability-based warriors. So, like I said, we buffed the auto attack warriors. Now we're bringing back. The idea is to bring back the ability warriors to be at that same level so they can be competitive and you can have that diversity in the soul lane. You can pick what you want to play and there's a viable build for everything.
Yeah.
You love to see it. So next up on the docket, we have a little bit of sigil changing. So warding sigil, sigil of the old guard, infused sigil, all kind of seeing a little adjustment here.
Yeah, these are relatively unpopular starter items, you might say. And
One might would say.
they're kind of a more defensive option, right? Which makes sense in Conquest. But in other modes like Arena, this item is crazy. It's very, very good.
Very fun.
And one thing that's come up quite frequently is that this item previously only had physical power, which means you could only buy it on physical characters. But, maybe you're playing a Guardian, maybe you're playing a mage like Nox or Afro or any of these characters that could build tanky, and you want to go this item as well in, again, non-Conquest game modes. Again, we are kind of adjusting the stats here, taking the health off, adding power instead to
Weird.
give, the ability to buy it on magicals. But we understand that removing
Certainly
health is a
weird.
pretty significant nerf, so we are adjusting it in other aspects as well. The prots are going up on the base, and then of course if we move on to the upgrades, Sigil of the Old Guard, again also losing health, gaining magical power, you're going to be increasing your protection from 40 to 45, and the heal is also going up as well, which
Very
is going to be
strange
a very nice little cherry on
things.
top
Very
for that. So
strange.
not only can you buy it on more characters, but you're getting a little bonus to the things you already had.
That's right.
And then one more, Infused Sigil, also getting a bump in prots and adding magical power.
I mean, what's not to love?
I'm ready to ruin the queues with that item. Infused Sigil is one of my favorite items in the game to just run at as a full tank. I'm ready to ruin every queue.
Let me run into the back line really quick with Infused Sigil Guardians now. I love that.
Yeah, and just gonna make a mess. Just gonna cause
Don't know if
problems.
Infused
So
Sigil
we talked a lot
is
about a lot of cool item
possible
stuff. And I
to
said
be a
earlier they were
relevant
cooking.
item
They
in
weren't
this
just,
meta
they weren't just
because
cooking on
the
what they already
games are
had.
over
We got some
so
new stuff to talk
fast.
about.
You
Something
have
might
to win your
even
lane. It's
teased
not a
little on
really
Twitter,
win
maybe.
lane item.
So let's
you
dive
know?
into the first of
I don't know if
two
it'll ever work
new
at high level
items
ranked when
in
the games
Smite
are over in 24
called
minutes.
Curse Weaver.
Curse Weaver. All right, so this item is building off of Sorcerer's Staff, which is in the Warlock's tree. So Sorcerer's Staff is the tier 2. This item is going to be 2,500
pretty
gold.
standard,
It's going to
like,
have 60
staff
magical power, 250 health, and
stats.
250 mana. But we all know that's not where you're here for. Stat schmats, am I right? Let's move on to the passive. This passive is reminiscent of some anti-mage, anti-caster identities of long past. And so
Okay.
I'll just read it off for you and then we'll break it down. Hitting an enemy god with a basic attack or ability marks them for 4 seconds. When the marked enemy god casts an ability, they take 5% of your maximum health plus 5% of your maximum mana as magical damage. You heal for 100% of the damage dealt. You may only apply a mark once every 12 seconds. Each time an enemy casts an ability within 55 units of you, reduce the cooldown of this item by 1 second. So, that's a lot of words. What does it actually do? Hit someone with anything as a magical character with this item, they get cursed. when they pop an ability, if they do it when you had the debuff on them, which it's 4 seconds, so it's not really that long.
Yeah.
You can kind of play around it if you really want to. They will take some damage based on your stats, your tanky stats, or your damaging stats if you're a Kukulkan building all the books. Additionally, on top of that, you heal. And then beyond that, if you're in the middle of a team fight, you're really getting the heck in there. It'll come off cooldown.
Pretty annoying.
Yeah, can't throw it on. I know we have a little video. I think we have what
pretty
was put
annoying.
on Twitter maybe to showcase that again, so you can see the curse lingering.
The curse. Ooh.
So you see that purple debuff, and you can see with the ghost coming out. That's the debuff there. It lasts for 4 seconds, and then when the enemy casts a spell, it will damage them and heal you as well. You see the little heal FX pop up on Anubis there, and that's how you know you've been healed. And it's a significant amount of healing as well, depending on your build. It depends on your max health and your max mana. So you can kind of get creative with this build to synergize with this.
It's kind of a weird
so
item.
this is another thing to think about,
like
especially if you're
preferably
even in lane. You mentioned team fights with a lot of
like
popping
a
abilities.
Guardian.
Buying in the solo lane, maybe
But it doesn't
as
give
a
any
Xingqian Guardian
protections,
with
and
Sigil, now that
typically
we've
your
changed that to be on the
damage
magic
from
rod,
building
and you're against a
tank
King
comes
Arthur that
from
has a lot of
protection
abilities.
and
This item
not
will come off
HP.
cooldown pretty often and actually
Yeah.
add a lot of damage and
You
healing
know?
to your kit.
Yeah, super cool. And again, it's just one of those that adds
The
a lot of
Glad
skill
Shield
expression, because
Pridvins
you
of
have
the
this whole new
world.
mechanic you get to play around based off of an item. Then you entangle that with the gods. You're like, oh, the enemy has, like you said, there's a King Arthur. Like there's
It's
lot
a
of abilities
weird
going
item.
off.
That
Just a lot of cool ways
one's
to play
gonna
with
need
this,
to be
Yeah.
seen
Excited to see
in
it,
practice.
But also excited to see this
So,
next item,
gonna need to be
which
seen
is
in
also
practice.
a brand new item in Smite.
Oh, boy.
You can tell by that reaction. So this new item is called Duality.
Duality. This is a new item in the balanced blade tree. So this comes off of Light Blade, and it's next to Chinsai, Executioner, and Asi are the items that it builds into. It's going to be 2,700 gold.
Expensive for a
so
reason.
That
luxury
item looked like
We'll
it only
get into
procced
why
one
in a
time,
moment
by
here.
the way,
40
and then
physical
took the
power
debuff
and
off
15%
them,
attack speed.
is
So
what it looked
decent
like.
power stats, kind of mid to okay attack speed, but again very expensive. Now there you go, learn me. Why is it so expensive? Well, I'll tell you, chat. It's because once every 5 seconds, your next basic attack deals half of its damage, and instead half of that damage is converted into physical ability damage. This bonus damage can proc ability item effects.
It means you're getting Bluestone from your auto attack, you're getting Crusher from your auto attack, Heartseeker from your auto attack. There's a lot of ability item effects that can just proc off of your basic attacks now that were previously only procking off of abilities.
Yep.
That is
Exactly.
spicy a little bit.
A new way to build.
Builds can get really crazy with
Yeah.
that. Previously, it was kind of trolled to go, Crusher, Heartseeker on characters like Rom. Well, Duality?
You kind of
Not
can.
anymore.
You kind of can,
we're
I guess.
bringing
It's
it
probably
back.
still a little troll, but
You'll have to test it out. But I know, J-Mac, are we good to hop in,
Yeah, we're good to
get an
go.
idea of what that'll look like? Let's check it out then.
yeah, by all means, just go ahead, take it away, just kind of go crazy with it. Yep, and you'll see here that it's only once every 5 seconds, so you're getting 100% of that damage, 100% of the healing, etc. You're also getting things that don't deal damage, like Brawlers is another item that you can apply with your basic attack now. So
Every
essentially, there's just so many
5
options of things you can do.
seconds
Like, what is it?
doesn't
I'm trying to think of like all of the various things we can do with it that we tested. We tested so many.
useful.
Yeah, it's this one's been in
By
development
the
for a little
time in
longer.
the
fact,
game that
I'll-
you
I'll
would
leak a little
buy
something here.
this,
was so OP
your
at one point that
abilities
we
are on 5
decided not to
second
ship it in a patch. It could have come
cooldowns
out last patch,
already.
but we needed to
So
change it
you'll
heavily
just have
because it was
an
so OP.
ability
Delicate
backup
item.
to
It's
proc
really,
all
really
of
fun,
these.
When we showed this off the first
No?
time to our ambassadors internally, they were like, "Oh, this is really fun. This is really exciting."
They kind of had a like field day going off and like brainstorming builds and things
Exactly,
that
yeah.
we could do, but we understand
Yeah,
completely
it's
that
one
this
more way
is
to
a very
proc.
scary thing to be messing with, and we don't want to
Okay.
change these things lightly.
It doesn't-
So again, it had to go through a bunch of iterations to get to this point, but we were super excited with how it turned out. And honestly, the flexibility that it brings
Yeah,
is just
maybe
so exciting.
Uber,
I
but
can't
then
wait
you
to
have
see
to
what
start
kind of
talking
builds
about
you
what
guys cook
items
up
are you
and
taking
what
out of
kind
your
flexibilities
build,
you
you
have.
know?
A little example
You
as
work
well. Like
Please do.
one thing
What are
I'm
you taking
excited
out of
about
your
is maybe
build?
Cupid. He's
There's a
Cupid's
couple
weird
of
spot where
characters
his
it might
clear is
be
ability
interesting
damage
on.
because he needs
There's
his
a
heart
couple
bomb,
of
so you kind of
characters.
want Heartseeker for his clear, but then he only has 2
It's gonna be
abilities
that's
and
a
one is
pretty
ultimate
niche
to be able to
item,
proc
though. Pretty
Heartseeker.
niche.
Now, if his auto attacks every 5 seconds can also proc Heartseeker and Crusher and Bluestone, then it makes those builds a lot more viable on him. On the other side of the things, if you get really creative, you could talk about, maybe Vamana wants to buy Bluestone for his early wave clear, and he transitioned into corrupted Bluestone later on. But it's difficult to get your corrupted Bluestone stacks when you're in your ultimate, and especially maintain them while you're in your ultimate. Now, when Vamana's in his ultimate, he can build up that corrupted bluestone with his auto attacks because of duality. So it just adds these new flavor builds to these characters that just kind of had one build path before.
I
or
wouldn't
really
say
awkward
that
build
either
paths
of these
before as well.
items
So,
so
again,
far
we're just adding
are
another layer
anywhere
to think about the
near
game
like
and just be more
the
creative and
scariness that was
Yes,
Equinox.
and again, you're not just
you
getting
know?
over this, right? Not only is it every so often
They're
it's on a
both
timer,
kind of
but you are trading
interesting,
off a
though.
good portion
They're
of
both
your
kind of
basic attack
interesting. I
damage
just don't
that you're
think
getting to
they're
trade off
they're-
for
they're
for
not
additional
very,
costs. So it's not always
generally
a net positive,
applicable. They're gonna be
but
more
when you
neat.
do have a lot of those proc items, when you've got the full build online, it feels really nice. But this is definitely a
Which
game
is
that you should be careful
arguably
about
the
going
way
in the
you
early
want
game, 'cause
items
again, you are
designed,
trading
you
off
know?
that damage.
You
for
don't want it
damage
to be like
somewhere.
Equinox
And it's
where
not
everybody
cheap either.
buys
We
it
did
that can
angle
buy
it
it 'cause it's
towards
so
the
OP.
mid-late to late game for sure. We did 2,700 gold item cost because we want to make sure people understand they want to get these proc items online first before they get the duality.
Yep.
It definitely makes sense. This doesn't seem like a first item for sure because of its passive, but I gotta throw a lot of respect on an item like this because some items you release and they become a part of a build and they're really cool and they're really fun to use. But how rare is it to see an item come out that redefines build paths? You know, that
That's why it's so exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so really, really cool. Excited to see, obviously, tons of internal tests done as always, but we can only
all the
cover
time.
we can only cover so much ground, you know? It's
right, yeah.
it's crazy how the moment we release this out into the wild and y'all get your hands on it, all the crazy stuff that shows up that we would have never even thought of. So really, really excited with something
And scared,
as,
but yeah.
always a
Only
little, scared.
bit, you know. It's always exciting to see an item like this, or really just even a concept that kind of like breaks the rules a little bit. You know what I mean? Where it's like this has never been a thing before. Well, let's see what it looks like.
trying
You know,
to
it's
move
time to
around.
get a little experimenting and just
Now's the
seeing
time,
what kind of fun builds you guys can come up with. Because again, the build path changing is what I'm really excited about. Being able to build items that have previously not worked on certain characters for XYZ reason, get duality, and now they work.
Well, just so excited for all of that. Excited to see it. And that is the item balance. So 2 beautiful new items to look out for with a variety of crazy after effects we will never be able to imagine until y'all figure it out and are like, well, this is crazy. So we are horrified and looking forward to it. So I guess it's God balance time, huh?
Yeah.
Time to talk about
I'm ready.
some balancy stuff, some God balancy stuff. So again, they've been cooking. Items weren't the only thing on the menu. They have a whole second menu covered with delicious God changes, and we're gonna get right into it now with some of the more standard balance, starting with Bologna.
Yeah, let's talk about nerfs. We got a couple nerfs.
Well,
Let's do some nerfs.
Guess I can take it away again. This is the same
Oh,
line
nerf,
as,
take it away. I get it.
Same line as the good one. Same line as the Equinox. Very, very strong god with Equinox. By far the strongest. Even
It's a
when
very
you
strong
look at the most
passive,
simple
to
data
be
we have,
fair.
even if it's publicly available. This
It's
season,
always
the
been one of
Hogan
the
rate was kind
strongest
of through the
passives.
roof when
At
we
one
added
point,
this
it was
item.
the
I think
strongest passive.
She was pretty good in previous
Might
metas,
still
even
be,
back at the World
actually.
Championship. She was a top pick for sure. So adding an item made her probably over the top, but as well, we're bringing her down, especially her passive, a little less protection, so a little less tanky in the early game especially, and then she was very, very quick. She still will be quicker than other gods because of that passive, but not 3% per stack, now
Yeah.
2.5%.
On top of that, though, we got Shield Bash coming up in cooldown to make sure you get a little less frequently having those. And then Scourge, just her poke in general, doing a little bit less damage, a little bit less extra clear as well. So slowing her down on kind of all accounts.
That's right,
Reeling it back in a little bit.
And we have the Equinox nerf on top of it as well, so
Yeah.
pretty significant nerfs for Bologna overall, but that just creates more room for other gods.
That's true. Open the door for other opportunity. So next on the list, we have Neath.
This is kind of crazy.
It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
This is Neath's first ever nerf.
Ever.
Ever.
Like ever.
Like ever.
Literally ever.
Like 11 years of Smite ever?
Yeah, she's never had a nerf. This is her first nerf.
Well, welcome to history, everybody.
Okay, just
I
because
was here in the
Last
chat.
can only
Wow.
play
Me-
one hunter
does indeed
doesn't
build
mean you
the
have to
Jotun,
nerf her
Transcendence,
because he's
etc.
the only
build.
person
And
playing
she
Neath
has just
and
been
brought
kind of
up
the
her win
dominant
rate.
mid laner for a hot minute here. So we are taking backflip, her
Okay.
escape up and cooldown, just a
That's
smidge,
not what
a little
that
bit less
means.
safe. And then really the big sticking point for this Neath nerf is going to be the nerf to World Waver, which,
Huh.
you know, if she's going to be able to shoot anyone in the world, you know, maybe she should be a bit closer to that global
Yeah.
cooldown timer with the ultimate. And then, of course, it's just doing quite a lot of damage, so bringing that down as well by 10%. This will be pretty significant, especially towards
Poor
the late
Neath
game.
was only
You
3
will be
months from
feeling this, these
retirement,
players,
dude.
And, I'm sorry that she's getting nerfed for the first time ever.
Yeah,
but
that's a
it's gotta
weird
happen.
choice.
Eventually, yeah. And this is on top of the Transcendence nerf and Jotun's nerf as well, so pretty significant nerfs for a very top performer in
That's
mid lane,
a
or just a
weird
top performer as
choice.
an ability hunter in general.
Man, if I would would have known we were here for that part of history, I'd have worn a suit or something. All right, well.
Now she gets duality, so can you really complain? You know?
That's true. There's a lot of
I mean,
good
she's
change
annoying,
too,
but
Hachi's up next.
Yeah,
What's going on with
not
Hachi?
annoying.
Yes, Hachi
I ain't
has
seen
just
one
been kind of a
Neath
staple
ban,
of
you
the
know what I'm
dual lane,
saying?
and I feel like we said this before. I feel like I've got a little deja vu right now, but he just doesn't seem to want to go.
Nope.
He's just chilling. You know, he's got a lot of benefits for him, right? Because he is just a very safe hunter, doesn't run out of mana. He's just kind of
Everything you want.
a
really.
staple. You know, he does everything pretty good. Master of Arms, though, we're going to be taking down that duration. That's his passive from 8 seconds to 6 seconds, so a little bit less time for your attack speed and mana. Eagle Eye is also getting decreased damage scaling, and the cooldown's going up. And then on top of that, Heavenly Banner, just a little bit less damage, a little bit less consistent clear and poke.
Yep.
But just
Hachi
kind of
has been
hitting
nerfed
every
so
element
many
of
times,
Hachi that
actually.
kind of is,
So many
you know,
times.
what makes him
right, so-
be a little bit stronger than everybody else.
Yeah, like I said, right now he gives you everything you kind of want, so we just bring everything down by one notch, so he's a little bit more balanced. That's the intention.
That makes
Across
sense.
the board.
Nice and easy. I can get behind that. So next up, seen him in game once. Guan Yu getting a
Yes.
little shake.
We're on the buffs now.
We're on the buffs now.
Guan Yu, kind of the antithesis of a basic attack warrior.
Yeah.
Just
As
not
long as they
at all.
nerf Chiron, AMC,
So we
and Marty,
figured that it would be a good
then
time
they
for
can
him
nerf
to make
Neath,
another
you know,
reappearance.
because those
And
are
so we're just
all
doing a couple of
objectively
nice
more
buffs across
popular
the
mid
board
lane
here.
hunters.
So a little bit of extra physical protections going into the lane for his abilities to come online. He has to take or deal damage, right? So he's got to be in the midst of the fight, which means, you know, he is going to be just eating some damage. So we're just going to make that damage hurt a little bit less. On top of that, mana costs a little bit high considering, you know, how much he's
Oh, they
spamming
already
them.
said on the buffs?
Warrior's
Oh.
Will is getting a
Okay.
decreased mana cost.
So they
from
nerfed the
60
fourth
to
most
80 to just
popular
50
mid-lane
at all
hunter.
ranks.
Okay.
That's going to feel real
Yeah,
nice.
that's pretty good.
That's going to be nice.
Whatever.
Talu Assault also kind of getting a similar vibe, except it's just 5 at all ranks. And then Cavalry Charge just getting a couple increased damage bops on it, 10 at all ranks. Gonna feel very nice to run people down with the horse.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited about from this change as well is the mana reductions, because previously his mana costs were at a point.
Yeah,
and he
last
used
must
his
have pissed
abilities
somebody
so
off,
often
for
that
sure.
His
Only
mana
explanation.
cost in general was at a point that he needed to buy these mana-based items like Breastplate or maybe even Transcendence. He almost had a requirement to buy Blackthorns, which we are buffing this patch, but now maybe he can get away with just buying a Glad Shield and not having to have a mana item, but just the mana buff. So maybe increasing some build diversity there, but also just alleviating the pressure. He is generally a lower pressure god. If you lose your first blue buff, it's not the end of the world. Your abilities cost less mana now. And if you do manage to get on top of somebody with that horse, it's actually one of the highest damaging abilities in the game. If
Yeah.
you can just hit every hit.
Like,
you
that's
hit-
the other part. You got to hit every.
Yeah, if you
have
have
to
to hit
hit
every
them.
hit now, it's really going to hurt them. So
Yeah.
hopefully we see a bit more play of him in the solo lane.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I think it's important to reiterate with it is it looks like 10 damage and 185 isn't
adds up.
that much. That's every single swing, and
Yeah,
that keeps
every
amplifying up as you keep hitting more and more of it. So that's 50, 60 plus damage that's going to be going up throughout the
It
course
will
of the
definitely
swing.
be adding
lot.
up.
It's going to hurt.
Even if you're not hitting the same person, you hit into a team fight, you're driving around whacking everybody, you're just distributing all of that damage throughout a
Yeah, it's
whole
a big
team.
AoE
So,
as well.
yeah, it's a
Driving
lot of
around,
stuff.
whacking everybody.
Cool. So next up, we
Sounds like a
have
good
the
Friday
scary
night, you know
Scorpion
what I'm saying?
Circuit changes.
Yes, this is going to be a set of exciting changes. I'm sure we have a lot of individuals that are going to love this change. But Sarkett is a character that we thought was going to be really good in the crit meta at the beginning of the year. Wasn't actually that good in the crit meta. Has fallen off a cliff since then. She is just missing in action at this point.
She is awful,
So
to be fair.
we've got a couple
Yeah.
nice buffs here for her, including some base health and health per level. Just the fact that she has to get the heck in there to do basically all of her abilities, on top of the fact that she really is mostly single target. Puts her at quite a bit of a disadvantage compared to other
buff.
characters. And
Health
she's had
buff
a
is
quite
kind of
low health
strange,
pool
but-
considering that exception. So that's the first part. This next part, exciting stuff. Ambush. It's back.
It's back.
It's so
It's back.
65 range returns to ambush. Welcome back, Circuit. You're going to be able to get over
pretty
more walls
far
now, which is
indeed.
going to feel really nice. On top of that, though, Last Breath is going from 120% damage scaling to 130%. This was kind of, even though it's true damage, it was not really doing all that much damage. It was more so used for the debuff and the movement, the force movement on enemies more so than the actual damage itself, and the poison, of course, to work with your passive. But this doing a little bit of extra damage on its own, especially scaling off of damage, it's going to feel really nice for Circuit players.
That's right. And what we saw as well is sometimes people were buying 1 or 2 tank items on Circuit, so you have less power anyway. So now you get more out of the power that you do have, and perhaps with the slightly increased health pool, you'll have to buy maybe 1 less defensive item. Than
I
what you
can't
had before.
imagine
Focus
that's
on
going to
being an
bring her
offensive
back into
scary
the
square.
fray,
Crit,
you
maybe.
know?
All right, cool. So
Can't imagine.
Terra up next. Love Terra. What's happening with Terra?
So Terra's an interesting case because we did just do an update to her.
which I thought was going to go
Yeah.
crazy.
Pretty cool.
I thought that was gonna be crazy.
That was a big
Yeah.
change.
It turned out to not really change her all that much, if at all. So in general, she has just not done very well at all. So we've got a lot of really fun changes here for her. First being
pretty
Crushing Earth
large
mana
heal
cost is
buff.
going down by just 10 total ranks. It's going to be a nice little early game boon for her to be able to spam those stuns a little bit
That's a
more
beefy
frequently. You know, if
heal.
you miss it, not a big deal. Not that much mana wasted anymore. Monolith also getting an increase to the heal, which is going to be nice as well for the assault gamers. Yeah, it's getting a very
double
nice
the heal
increase
is-
here.
that's
It's basically
not nothing,
doubling
man.
at all
That's
ranks.
not
So
nothing.
that's going to feel very nice for your sustain both in lane, and you know if you want to use it for sustain in between fights as well.
And
You know, that's another
70-second
option.
ulti
But
before
I think the craziest
CDR?
change here
I mean,
is this very final one. Earth and Fury
That could
decrease cooldown from
that could
90
push
at all
Terra
ranks,
into
scaling
the
from
play
90
zone for sure.
to 70 seconds.
That's 20.
back.
Late
For sure.
game monster,
Yeah.
Terra's
ladies
back.
and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's
Terra is back.
ooh. 20 seconds is a long time for an ult, especially.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to really encourage Terra players to do more is just to press that ultimate more because it's actually
just get
really
out
good
there.
offensively as well. And your teammates will react to when you press your ultimate. A lot of Terra players, when they're newer to Terra at least, they use it as a reactionary tool. Like, oh, I'm getting dove on, or my teammate's getting dove on, I'm going to ult for them. I think if you ult earlier in a team fight, you'll actually find you get a lot more uses out of this ultimate. So be more brave with that ultimate. It's on a lower cooldown now in the later
Yeah.
game.
Be brave.
You can press more,
Be
and
brave.
even if it's
Play
wasted
Smite.
sometimes, that's okay. It's coming up again sooner. So
Yep.
just in general, use it more and find more creative ways to use it.
He was a pro league coach. You can trust what he says.
That's true.
Not all that successful, but sure.
Nah, it counts. You're balancing now. You know the ins and outs.
A little more data than before.
Exactly. So now we're getting to one of my favorite mages. Anyway, personally, got some Merlin changes we get to talk about.
Now this is going to look strange, and I understand it completely.
Good, strong.
his
Merlin
passive?
is a character that many people perceive to be just fine. Just, you know, he does everything he needed to do. He's very standard. Never really a bad character. Never really, you know, a broken character. Sometimes he's just good. But here's the thing. Merlin's a hard character. And so that makes his win rate naturally pretty low. But here's the thing. His win rate is much lower than normal.
be.
What it should be. Like, exceedingly so. Like, he's probably one of the least winningest gods in the game, period,
Oof,
right now.
okay.
So we understand that he can be a little scary at times. So what we're doing here is we're doing a couple smaller changes. So first up is Overload, going to be getting more damage. This is passive. So this is for those players that are weaving the basics in between abilities, a little bit of extra buff damage as well if you want a little bit of extra poke, if you're able to weave those autos in. But yes, just a little bit more damage on that. That's going to feel nice.
Sure.
Moving on to Radiate. This is the one in Fire Stance. More
Little bit
cooldown
of
for you, so you're going to be able
cooldown,
to
little
use
bit
that
of
more often.
cooldown.
16 seconds is kind
As
of
long
crazy.
as they
to
don't
be,
give
if you
him
ever switch out those in the
damage,
early
like,
ranks before
really,
you're able to,
you know?
Get the cooldown
Like, the
lower.
passive
on
is
your
fine,
switch
'cause,
stance.
you
It
know,
feels
most people
really
don't even
bad
land
to
the
be rating
autos
on two
anyway.
abilities
Long
that are
time.
16 and
very
18
long time.
seconds. Not a good feeling. So we're not making it any lower at the high end when you're actually feeling good. You got Merlin online. We're just making it lower at the early game stages, so you're not stuck for so long with
Yeah.
abilities
And
that
specifically,
you want to switch from.
just the fire stance as well.
Yes, just Fire Stance.
Just for fire.
And that's it. That's Merlin. We're good.
We're good. We did it.
That's
All
fine.
right, another M-related god,
That's
Medusa,
fine.
up next. Also seeing a little bit.
Yes, this is an exciting one. A little
Movement
bit flavorful
speed
too in a
buff
way.
is
We're
kinda
looking
scary
at,
for her,
Medusa stats,
actually.
and she is on the lower end of things. You know, she's not awful, horrible, horrendous, but she hasn't really seen a whole lot of play. She's not very popular.
And the
outside
buff
of,
to acid
specific
spray
crowds. So
could
we're like,
mean
what's
early or
going on?
clear, which is a
So
big
the first
deal.
thing that we're doing is we're actually giving her a buff to her general movement speed, and this we feel like is really cool just thematically.
Yeah.
Because her passive Sidewinder also interacts with this, so it's going to let her be a bit more evasive, a bit more aggressive if you want to be, or even just a bit more defensive, because we know she does struggle there when Lacerate gets caught on things. She kind of can get stuck. It's not going to, change the world for her, but it's
Yeah.
going to be nice. It'll feel nice. And then beyond that, of course, Acid Spray is her, standard clearing ability, poking ability. It just isn't keeping up, though, compared to a lot of other characters, so we're taking the cooldown down and giving it
Okay.
just a bit more damage.
That's correct. Yeah, I think when we were looking at this god as well, we had to keep in mind that duality was coming in this patch as well. So we
Yeah.
didn't want to just.
It's going to
buff
help
this
her
god like
boxing
crazy
potential a
and
lot.
Yes, use
10
duality
movement
very
speed
well.
could be just
now
enough
if
to,
you buy
get out of the
duality
range
on
of that
Medusa
Uber
with these
axe
small
with her
buffs, you actually
passive,
feel
right?
like
So
a much more enhanced god.
Nice.
Yeah.
And good forethought. Crazy how many different things to
There's-
think of when you're balancing. You're like, well, we're releasing
there's
this item.
potential there.
A lot
to
of things
balance
come
around
together.
that. Yeah, it seems like a symphony of ideas. But so we're moving back into the Guardian terrain, one of my favorite places to talk, and Maui is getting some changes.
Yeah, the boy Maui.
The boy.
He just got some buffs, but it didn't change anything for him, unfortunately. So we're doing a lot stronger buffs here, and a lot of these are very, very exciting. So first up, we've got the passive Manaya Kalani, and so this is going to be, you know, essentially the aura around you that is checking
Manaya
for when enemies are
Kalani,
getting
that's a
CC'd.
fun as hell
It's now
word
a
to say.
Bigger radius, so
I don't
if
know
you're
what
a little
that
bit
means,
too
but
far
that's a
away
fun
to get
word.
it right off the bat,
I like
you can now
that.
get it a little bit easier. It gives you more of that range to actually get in there and pick up that passive more frequently.
Nice.
Finally, or not finally, I guess, comma, Master Fisherman no longer has a slow. It feels so good now, you guys. It feels really, really good.
At full speed, you can get
Oh,
the
that's
Full
so
speed
cool.
yoink.
faster. Yeah.
You're actually not pulling people that much faster because of that. And on top of that, we're also increasing the vortex strength by about 15%. It's kind of hard
It's
to
just
measure.
Hawaiian
Those
for
numbers aren't really like
passive. I love
public facing, so it's hard to like
Yeah.
say, hey guys, the vortex changed by this number, and everyone goes, I don't know what that means. So just trust
Cool,
me,
I guess.
15%, a little bit, it's going to feel nice. A little bit stronger pulls, a little bit more control for Maui where that pull is going as well.
Exactly what I was about to say. In general, both of these changes combined.
It
for
means
Master
that
Fisherman,
she's.
it feels
You
like
lied to
have much more
me.
control over your
You
opponent,
lied to me,
and
Crane.
can actually
You would
put
lie
them
to
where
a
you want them
man
to be at
who
whenever
just
you want them
said
to be there.
Manaya
Not putting yourself in
Kalani.
so much risk either.
Exactly,
You would do
yeah.
that to your boy?
Yeah, we got more though. We're not
Oh
done.
yeah.
Good thing I didn't get that
Mystical
tattoo. That
Ulua,
would have
this
been
is the two.
embarrassing.
So, the cooldown for this ability is going down, and believe me, this is
Instead,
an
I'll just
exciting
get a
thing
nice
for this
little
ability
Japanese
because
symbol.
even now, at max cooldown, you're going to be able to kind of refresh that
My
buff super
tattoo
easily.
artist
So it's
says-
really just going to
says
be the
it
early
says
game where you're
big
going to have a
and
little bit
strong,
more access
so
to it, a little bit more
probably
time
does.
to use those tools, that movement speed, etc.
How about that?
Just more chances
Yeah.
to do cool things with this ability. And finally, finally,
It's back.
it's back.
The ult.
Landfall at 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Get yoinking.
Get yoinking. Yeah, what else is there to be said? It's
right, yeah,
one
we can leave
of
it
my
at that.
favorite ults in the game. Yeah, just absolutely incredible to use and see. Get yoinking. You heard it.
I changed the
here
name of the ability actually. We can
Just
call it
yoink?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just change the whole description.
Yoink.
Yeah. Yoinks.
Is it just yoink?
You have a status effect when you get hit. Got yoinked. So it's this whole thing. We're working on it. So Ymir is here up next.
Speaking of him being here, he's here in Smite 2 as well.
Whoa.
And one
he is.
change that came to Smite 2 that we definitely wanted to consider for Smite 1. We did the camera unlock previously, but now Ymir is able to rotate
Yes.
when using Glacial Strike. He's not able to move like in Smite 2. We had a couple extra restrictions, you know, just due to the way
Animation.
that our framework is working right now on Smite 1. But
Due to
essentially,
spaghetti
Ymir can now
code.
rotate while in the
She's
pre-fire of
saying
Glacial Strike.
Smite
so
is
you can
programmed
start the
very
ability and then
poorly, so
turn
we
and
can't
re-aim and
edit these
follow and
things
track
without
where
breaking everything
your enemies are going to, and yeah, it just feels way more fluid.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's just one of those changes. Just nice and easy. Like feels good. Love that. So moving forward, Hera, Royal Assault.
Speaking of feels good, Hera, a character that has been kind of missing unless your name's Dardes, which mine isn't. So I don't know about you guys,
That's true.
but this character
Wow,
has
they made
had
it
kind of a
easier to
quirk
hit the
about her
double.
where
Okay.
Royal Assault has the Argus hands kind of come together. And when they come together, there's this nice little area where you deal bonus damage as Hera. But here's the thing. You're never really going to be able to hit that on purpose because it's so small. So small.
Very.
It's basically 6 units across, and the average god is like
12. I think.
way smaller than that, like five across
Oh, right.
essentially. So yeah, essentially you are hitting the god perfectly or you're not hitting them at all, which is not ideal for Hera. So we're basically increasing that area by 50%. So it's going from about 6 to about 12 units
Yeah, that's what
across.
it is.
So the targeter is also updated as well, so you're going to be able to see that in game
In the middle
to
of it.
know exactly where that area is going to be. But yeah, essentially it's going to make it a lot easier for Hera to intentionally get this double hit damage. We're not actually buffering that damage, so the damage is still going to be exactly the
Easier to
same,
hit.
just
Yeah.
easier to hit.
Maybe even multiple targets.
Ooh,
Ooh, you're getting spicy over here.
yeah.
All right. So last but not least, in this particular category of changes,
Nope,
Osiris.
6 to 12
Yes,
is 50%.
Osiris. We understand that he is
50%.
Performer.
We
a
understand.
top performer.
We get it.
However, we didn't want to hold back a cool change just
And
because
Honolulu means
he's the
passive
performer.
in Hawaii.
So Spirit Flail
So-
is an ability that you could not cast into a
We're
wall.
all
So
learning
if the
things
ability
today.
was over 50% of the way into the wall, it would not allow you to cast it. This is kind of inconvenient around a couple of spots if you're trying to aim over a wall or something next
Yeah.
to a wall. Like talk about Fire Giant is another thing that makes it a little bit difficult to use this ability around. Essentially, you can just fire it inside of walls now. Yes, that does mean that, you know, certain players could go fire it off in a Timbuktu, and honestly, that's a risk that we are willing to accept because it just feels so much nicer to not have to worry about, is my ability halfway in the wall? My ability, you know, didn't go off.
It's
it just does not feel
technically
very clunky
a
anymore.
buff,
and,
but
feels
it's
great.
more of a
Another one of those y'all have been
clunk
cranking out those
fix for
classic like,
Osiris.
changes that
It always
feel
feels weird
good.
when they get a
So,
clunk fix
love to
on a
see it.
god while he's one of the
But
strongest
we're
characters
nowhere
in the
near
game.
done with
but
changes. We have a
that's
good
fine.
few more to talk
I'll
about
take a clunk
here.
fix
But
anytime
now we're
we can
shifting
get one.
categories a little bit.
Turn it
So,
up a notch, I suppose.
Yeah, we were in kind of the general balance zone.
Yeah, that said regular.
That's
Let's
a regular.
Turn it up.
This one says major. So let's talk major god balance, and we'll start with Alarin.
Yeah, so I guess to kind of preamble why we're talking about Olaf.
Please preamble.
We generally looked across the board and saw which characters are unpopular and which characters are bad. Who's not winning and who does nobody want to play. And unfortunately, Olaf ended up in that category as one of the kind of premier like hunter picks that just were not hitting the mark for one reason or another, right? We kind of
Increased
wanted
critical
to
strike
address
from 70
them
to
case by
100.
case as to who was
And
coming
the
up.
damage from 30
And
to 40,
Olaf came up
and
again for a
the
variety of
power
reasons, which we'll get
requirement
into. But
was
first up, we're doing a lot of
increased.
changes
But
to
they
Touch of
just
Fate, which is
buffed
his passive.
Bancroft's
So the first exciting thing that you're
and
going to see is that the cap of critical strike is going from 70%
the
to 100%.
ring, which has a name, I'm sure.
I can now guarantee crits as Olaf. That's pretty
So-
sick.
That's pretty nutty.
And we're also increasing the damage from critical strikes for Olaf from 30% to 40%. As many of you eagle-eyed viewers know,
He could be-
Olaf does less crit damage than a standard physical
could be
crit.
very
now he's
scary.
doing a little bit closer to that,
He
but
could be
still will
very scary.
Yes, to kind of compensate for this, the power requirement for him to get critical strike is also going up just a little bit. It's only increasing the total power that you need by a small amount. Again, you still get 20% off the bat once you get 100 power, but you're going to need a bit more power to build into that to get to the full crit. So again, we're not intending everybody on Olaf to always get 100% crit. You can build into 100% crit now if you want to. It's not free 100%. You got to make the choice to build into it.
That's right. I think to wrap up the changes to his passive in general, now that you have basically two build paths, right? You can go all the rings, which is generally lower power. You can attack fast, and you still probably get around 70 or just above 70% crit, plus the increased crit you're getting from each one of those auto attacks. But if you wanted to build into
you're
a
going to
higher
have
power build and
Bancroft, you're going to
guarantee
have
those crits and see
Cyclopian.
those
You should
bigger
probably have
numbers,
Rod of
then
Tahuti no matter
you can
what.
have that option
Between
as
those
well.
three
So
items, that's a
just
decent
opens up
amount of
those
power.
opportunities
So.
for you.
Yeah. Up next, we've got Focus Light, which is
Oh,
his
we're
one.
still buffing
And this
him.
is going to essentially have a new feature, which now gains increased damage dealt the longer you charge it up to a maximum of 20% increased damage when you fully charge it.
Oh,
So this
no, we kept
ability,
buffing him.
You previously would charge it to increase the range and the width, which felt nice. But one of the intuitive things I think a lot of people missed is that it does the same amount of damage. No longer. You do more damage now. So the longer you charge it, the more that you spend, the more payoff you get, other than just the range and the width.
This is a fun one because if you really hit those fully charged long range ones that are just all the way down the lane, now you get that bigger payoff and you can see that bigger crit. So I think it's a really
theoretically,
good
so it does
Will help you
20%
clear
more
on the
damage,
archers
and it
especially,
could be a
because you can charge
guaranteed
it up
crit.
longer if you're standing back from your
That's
wave and just
gonna
the
hurt
end of
late
your one is hitting
game.
those archers, they should
And
die,
it's gonna
depending on
crit
your build,
for
of course, but
more.
they should die more often
That's
than
going to
the other.
hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, just a small buff on top of it. Consecration, this is his 3, is getting a decreased cooldown from 14 seconds to 12 seconds. Just a little bit more peel ability for Olaf here, survivability, more healing. It's going to feel nice.
I got
Overall,
a feeling.
a lot of changes, a lot of cool stuff to see there.
It feels really good to play
That
in a
Olaf's
somewhat recent
gonna
playtest.
be
I ran in the ADC lane.
perma-banned
One of the problems
at
with him is, we feel
Diamond
like
Plus
you have to expend your one
rank.
sometimes to clear, so people might get.
He's gonna be
I wanted to
perma-banned,
max
I
my
think,
second
actually.
ability instead. I
Oleron
for the sake of the test, just
oftentimes
started maxing out my
has
first
been
ability,
played at high level
and you're able to full
and
clear
not
if you get a
anywhere
full
else,
charge
and I think
pretty
we
early
just
in.
did
I'm
it.
not going to say it's
I think
like
we just
immediate,
did
but
it.
usually by like rank 4,
So-
rank 5, get a little bit of charge up. You're going to start full clearing the archers at the least, and it's also just really good poke. I mean, the 20% doesn't sound like a whole lot.
It does
That's
actually.
20%, and then now the bonus 40% crit that comes on
20%
top of it. So if you can land one of those
bonus on
crits,
top of
it's
10%
good. And
crit
also kind of
damage on
speaking
top
on the
of
passive,
crit. I mean, that sounds like
your
a lot
kind
to
of
me.
standard build that you would do before
Sounds like a lot to me.
get you up to that 70% crit. It's not a big deal. You're right there. Now that gives you almost about another 10% roughly as far as your build goes. So it's not a huge.
This buff made possible by the death of the SPL.
And one more
Yeah,
thing on top of
this
that
is
as well,
a
if you
this
remember
is
way
a
back
buff
early
they
in the
show to
show, it was like an
SPL
hour ago
players,
now.
and they're
We
like,
also
"Yo,
got
Hi-Res, what are
Cyclopian
you
Ring
smoking,
and the
dog?
Nimble Bancroft
You
Talent
can't
as
do
well.
that
So
to
those are
us.
two
We need our
items that
bans
you
for
build.
other things."
So all of that coming
Whoa,
together.
whoa, whoa,
One of
whoa,
these
whoa.
gods that was just not favored
more
at all,
SPL
was not all
players
that
to tell them
popular, and
no.
the players that did play him weren't the happiest to be playing him. Now they get all of this stuff in one patch, and we hopefully
stop them
can see
now.
back in the meta again.
Yeah, see a little bit of the return. Awesome. Well, to continue moving down, a god that has always held a special place in my heart, Mulan, getting a little love here.
Yeah, Mulan. She is here as well. So grapple. This change is very, very in the same vein to the changes that we did with Ymir earlier in the show
Sorry,
and Hercules last patch.
I just
Good. Okay.
it's
It
a
is
very
feels
big
good change where
shift
Mulan may
to
now
go
rotate
from
during the pre-fire of grapple. So you're aiming
30% more
you can
crit
still aim it
chance
the whole time.
to can now
Right,
rotate
it's
during the
shots as well.
pre-fire.
Yeah.
That's a
Dude.
hard shift for my
36
brain.
I will
grapple.
That's a
all
hard
of
shift.
Absolutely.
Important that you try. That's okay.
And then on top
Major
of that, we've got
balance.
Divine Mastery. This is her ultimate. Mulan is now no longer required to hit an enemy god to use the knock-up and projectile portions of this ability. So
That's
you can use
nice,
it to
I
gain
guess.
ground now if you want to. You don't
Right.
have to go through a god to be able to
That's
poke them
nice.
from further away. It feels
good
really
quality
nice to
of
have the
life.
extra utility of those CCs and not have to worry about being on top of someone to get it.
It makes your choices much more dynamic. In reality, if the way you could look at this as well, if you wanted to engage a fight as Mulan and they're 70, 80 yards away from you, you can ult forward, not even be in range of hitting anybody, but then you get the next part of your ultimate. So you can ult forward and then knock them up in the distance as well to help your team engage. Same way on the back out as well. You can ult out of a team fight, turn around, knock them up, and then run away. Even if you're not hitting people with that first part of the ultimate, you still get the subsequent parts. And obviously, you still have your opportunity to cancel it if you just want to right-click out of it on PC.
Yeah.
Feel free to do that, but it just adds more dynamic options for the way to think about this ult when you're playing gods, when you're playing Mulan and playing against Mulan.
Yeah, a lot of times you think about taking like restrictions from the abilities away, decreasing skill expression, but this honestly has increased it quite a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like for me that removes.
It
the
ain't
feels
no
bad
Oleron
taste that
buff,
used to
but
happen
it's
where
something.
You're in a fight and you throw your ult out, and you feel assured you're about to hit somebody, and then you.
It'll
do the dash,
definitely
and you
help
don't
her
get any of the
feel
other portions, and you're
smoother,
like,
too.
I don't
It'll
understand
make her
how
whole
I
kit
missed
feel
that,
smoother,
but we're in
which
this
is
team
always
fight.
nice.
I've blown my ult already.
Declunk
and, like, I
is
don't get the other
always
two
a good
components.
thing.
So I love that a lot
You
because
know,
it removes
always
kind of
a
that
good
feels
thing.
bad. I just whiffed. That's my fault type scenario. You can still turn around and get utility out of it. So super great to hear. This next one. Definitely a little fun. We get Fafnir up with some changes.
Yeah, Fafnir definitely has fallen in the category of the unpopular, underperforming.
Not quite doing
Poor
it.
fella.
Right
Poor
Well,
fella.
he's,
Poor fella
he's only
But
unpopular
we've got a
because
couple
he
exciting things
sucks.
here for Fafnir. So Fafnir is a greedy little guy.
People
So
like
what
him.
we're doing
He
is giving
just
endless
sucks.
greed a brand new
And people
effect,
don't like
which
losing.
is Fafnir now gains 1 gold per enemy god hit with his abilities. And then on top of that, during his ultimate, Fafnir gains 2 gold instead. Because, I mean, let's think about it. Is he really just fighting you to fight you? No, he wants your gold, man. He wants you for your gold.
Getting in
That's
those
it.
pockets a little bit, yeah.
So essentially,
Now,
this is a once per
deforms
ability
faster.
per target. So
Okay,
if you
okay.
are, hitting everyone
That's
with
something.
coerce, you're only ever gonna get 1 proc of this. You're not getting infinite money, every time your allies are spamming somebody with basic attacks or whatever it might be. You can only ever get up to 5 gold in your dwarf form and 10 gold in your dragon form from 1 ability cast if they hit everything. But they have to, essentially get active to get more gold. So he's definitely going to have that extra bit of spooling.
We talked about this topic a lot in the last patch notes show a month ago, where we just want to get people back into the action, fighting more often, and just the real fun part of the game, right? No matter the
Not
game
too
mode,
crazy
start
so
fighting other
far
gods,
for
that's the fun
Fafnir.
part.
Those are
his old passive,
those are
well, it's the same
pretty
passive, but this
small.
is just
I
another point.
imagine
It was
there's
just all
something
about
else
being
for
around
him
the minions
because
when they
he's
died.
definitely
making sure
a
you
lot
get that extra
worse
gold.
than that
Now,
is better.
You can be around or you do the same thing, you still get the same amount of gold, but now you can also not feel punished by going to fight enemy gods because you're missing out on farm. Now you could even build a bunch of cooldown, hit
I'm
gods
sure
more
they've
often,
got
get
something
gold,
else
get
for
gold
him.
more often, and ult more often to hit gods for double the gold. Like it just adds another way to think.
It's like a
about
little
playing the
note
same
at the
character.
bottom.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
he's
really
the
fun.
You
last
get to
god
change
we're
that
adding
Fafnir
to
grind
Smite
set.
to
You can either
get
be the
wrecked.
minions or the gods. You can have it both ways.
Yeah,
I know there's
both.
I know there's another point too, but we can dive in game to kind of show. These are good ones to showcase.
Yes, this is
too.
going to be a
yeah,
nice
for
one
sure.
to showcase.
So as we talk about this next point, so we
Yes,
got our boy Fafnir, and you can see him making money.
Oh yeah, he's going to be making money when he hits abilities. See that
There it
1
is,
gold?
1 gold.
Yep, 1 gold, baby. That's right. We
Getting
are
1
getting
gold
money.
for hitting your ability seems kind of troll.
But on top of that, we did want to talk about the other change that we did to Fafnir here, which you might have seen on screen a little bit earlier. Draconic Corruption. You go into this ability the same way you always did, but if you are leaving Draconic Corruption, you get out approximately 20% faster. So if we can get a little D-transform here, way faster, and now you're right back in the action. It does always kind of suck to like watch yourself die as Fafnir as you're coming
But it's
out.
like you get the
No,
gold
it's
on
gonna run
auto
out, and
attacks
it does,
too.
and all of a sudden there's a Poseidon whirlpool, and you
That's
know it's
actually
coming immediately.
Yep,
probably a
they're
bigger
just waiting
deal
for you to
for a little
be
bit of extra cash.
CCable again. So you are getting a bit of a
Did he
trade-off.
get it on
right?
his
You're
auto
not
attacks
gonna
in
be keeping
Dragon
that
Form?
CC immunity for as long anymore.
Doesn't
But
matter.
you do get to get back in the action.
Only
a
when
lot
your
faster.
two's active?
So
Okay.
it is nice in some ways, and it's a fair trade-off. I feel like to let Fafnir kind of get in there and not feel so bad about leaving his dragon form, because one of the nicest things about Fafnir is being in the dragon form.
That's right.
But you never want to leave.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit less bad when you feel like you gotta go.
Yeah, you get out quicker, so you can get back in quicker later. So
Yeah.
super cool. I love that's the type of mini game I love to see. The like get gold by fighting. That is something that I will get into the game and I'll be like, all right, the goal for this game, get bread.
Yeah, we found that a lot. In fact, old Teleria boots used to be this way as well. Or maybe they were called something else. I can't remember exactly what they were, but you would get gold when you would hit a target. This is a similar thing. We saw it with Prophetic Cloak as well. When you hit a god, you get
We
a
love
stack of that.
mini-games.
And everybody really loves these mini games of getting in combat and fighting other gods. So we hope that Fafnir players like it especially.
I think it's a good change. Personally, we'll obviously wait to hear what y'all say, but I'm all about it for my boy. So next up, Ishel.
Okay.
Yeah, Ishel is a relatively recent
All right.
addition to
Yeah, still
the roster
pretty
of
new.
gods. It's almost been a year now, which is kind of crazy to
Yeah.
think about. But
Time is a construct.
holy crap!
Right.
Anyway, Ishel, great end. This ability has definitely been the most contentious when it comes to discussion around Ishel. So one thing that Ishel previously did not do that she now does is when she hits an enemy god with this ability, even if she's not hitting an allied god, she will now heal. So this ability is way, way, way more useful
Oh, yeah.
in those one-on-one situations where you're not able
Now
to,
heals
have
herself
an
and
ally
hitting
around
enemy
and try to
god.
balance
That's a
between them.
huge
That part's
buff.
always challenging. And then on top of that, ability to hit an enemy and heal, you will also still be able to hit an ally and heal.
and it's
You can
gonna
do
be
this
slightly
both, but
wider.
They don't stack on each other, so
Nice.
it's always the same amount of healing, no
Uh-huh.
matter if you're hitting enemy, ally, or both. Doesn't matter, same amount of healing.
Slightly wider.
Additionally, we also fixed an issue where this ability was slightly too narrow, so hard to hit. Again, it's still hard to hit, but it's a little bit more as intended
accurate
to
to the
be, more
targeter,
accurate to the targeter, and it just feels way, way, way better. I
Yeah.
can say that it just feels like I'm hitting it more, even though the art is not different. It's really only a smidge bigger, but it feels like night and day.
Yeah, feels really good as well because sometimes you're in Ishel and you just got caught out by yourself without an ally near you. You've only got so much peel for yourself to peel off a jungle or something like that. Now you can actually.
I mean,
ult
she
them
has like a
defensively
lot of
to heal
peel.
yourself as well.
You know,
which
she has
feels
a
really good.
root,
Just another way
a
again.
knock
Definitely
up,
you're a god.
and a blind.
Love
and
to
a
hear it.
CC immunity
So next up, you
channel.
might have seen this one if you were
I
paying
wouldn't
attention
say-
on Twitter.
I
Gotta
mean,
kind of
fine.
tease this one a little bit.
I'll take an Ishel buff, though.
Bastet
Nobody
has
plays her,
something
so
going on
I'll
with
take
those
it.
claws, those kitty claws.
Yeah, Ensnaring Claw, this is her third ability. So in this ability, she spawns a cat. The cat's health is going down. We know that this ability can be quite frustrating to play against, and we understand
is.
that having it be basic attack damage is definitely a
Damage and
barrier for some
CC
gods, right?
immune until
Especially
it
the
hits an
low attack
enemy.
speed gods, they just have an issue getting through this cat.
Initial
So again,
hit
because we're doing a change to
deals
this, we want to bring that
damage
down.
and root.
That's
Oh,
the
it's an AoE
first
root.
piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The first bit.
Yeah, let's move on to the second
Okay.
piece. The cat now does damage. The cat is now damage and CC immune until it hits an enemy or reaches its max range. This was very, very important to Bastet players, as we've seen, because sometimes the cat will just diamond projectile, and then essentially
Does nothing.
your cat has done nothing.
Yeah.
So now that's no longer a thing. It does not get stopped by whirlpools or stuns or anything. It'll just continue along its path until it reaches the enemy that it's trying to get to. But again, it's going to be weaker now. You can kill it much faster, and you can still walk away from it. That's the most important thing. Now, finally, the final piece of this puzzle. The initial hit of this ability now damages and roots all enemies in a 10-unit radius around it. So kind of flashback to another Bastet ability of years past. This is just going to be so nice to help with clear.
Yeah.
Jungle clear especially.
Especially Jungle Clear, which Bastet is generally weak at. She is considered an early game god that does,
Right.
scale decently well to the late game, but her clear is just not the greatest.
Yeah, no, it felt sometimes, if you're playing Bastet jungle, you would jump over a wall into a jungle camp, and then you'd to the jungle camp as well, and then so that jungle camp is cleared, you'd move on to the next one, and all of a sudden, all you've got is your single target 3 and your single target auto attacks just waiting for your 1 and your 2 to come off cooldown. Now, you can actually use your 3 to be able to help you clear those side camps as well as the big one. Makes your single target damage just be focused on the big one, while your 3 can clear the sides much better. As well, if you want to play Bastet in the solo lane, you can use it against the melees, the archers, and help you clear that wave. So all in all, a good feeling change for not a bad performing god, but again, just a feeling change on both sides of the coin, right? We want it to be easier to kill for gods that struggle to kill it, that have slower auto attacks, but feel better for Bastet so it doesn't die. During that travel time, there was multiple scenarios where I was playing and I'm Jormungandr, for example, and I could just be breathing while a cat gets thrown at me, and before it would even reach me, it would die to the breath. Yeah, so that's not fun for anybody. This fixes both of those issues. That's the intent of these changes.
Yes, exactly.
Nice. Well, good changes to see. And we do have that Twitter clip again, just for those of y'all who
Let's
might
just
not
take
have
a
seen
gander.
it.
Why not?
Take a gander at it. So,
Yeah, and every skin has an updated targeter as well, so you'll be able to see the little circle where it will be doing damage in. And there's another
Alright.
part of this clip that we'll get to a little bit later.
I could see as well. But yeah, you also see the root animation or the root FX on each of those
Yeah.
targets in
Yeah.
the circle as well. So everybody that is getting hit will know why they were rooted.
yeah, and much like you said, there's another sprinkle of surprise, another layer for the veteran eye, but we're getting close to that. So to end this section on particular god balance, the last on the list is Charybdis.
This one's huge.
This one is
one's really, really big.
Charybdis got a beefy change here.
Right.
So let's Raging
Increased
Tides.
tide
let's start.
per
All right,
basic attack
Raging
hit.
Tides, her passive. So essentially, there have been a lot of discussions about Charybdis and why Charybdis has a couple of awkward bits to her, and we totally understand the feedback coming from those different perspectives, and we're trying to kind of reach a nice midpoint of where we believe that she's going to feel really good for the Charybdis player while not feeling too bad playing against her as well. So first up, Raging Tides. We're going to allow her to get tied a little bit faster here for her basic attacks from 2% to 3%. This adds up over time, especially if you consider having the triple attack. It's going to feel real nice. Up next, Capsize. This ability has previously felt a little bit awkward to cast. You're like, when do I cast this? Like, am I supposed to, interrupt myself while I'm fighting someone to get that extra prot shred? But we're going to be decreasing the time to full charge from 1 second to 0.75 seconds. So you're really spending a little bit less time.
Neither of these are really
less
that
punishing.
important.
Yeah. Less
If they touch her
punishing to
3 or
actually
her
get fully
ultimate,
charged.
that's where
Yeah.
things get
Exactly.
interesting.
Next,
Pre-fire
this
on her
change
3.
is very big. And you're going to look at it and you're going to go, learn me.
Or
What do you
ultimate
mean?
actually does something.
Let me break it down for you.
All right.
Charybdis,
She's
as a character,
CC immune during the
can
pre-fire.
be
See, there it is.
very difficult to
There
kind of
it
have good
is.
interactions with
Uh-huh.
sometimes
Okay.
because of the way that her timings work
There
and
it
because
is.
of the way that her abilities animate. A lot of that is not super flexible within the space that we can work with at this point in time. So we have to kind of make some concessions here and there to kind of get a good feeling character in some way or another. And it's really, really
Yep.
important to us that Charybdis feels good for the Charybdis player. If you're not having fun playing Charybdis,
But you don't get
you're
the
not
bonus
going to go back
movement
and play her
speed.
again.
Yep,
It's just
without,
as simple as that.
Without
So we really wanted to try to improve this feeling for the
Buffing
Charybdis
it.
player without, again, damaging that reputation that she has of being super safe, of being really escapable. Too much from the enemy perspective as well.
Yeah.
So we are adding CC immunity during the pre-fire of this ability, which
dive
means
in,
that,
yep.
yes, the dive in only.
Yeah, the splash.
So when she's actually going into this ability, she can no longer be canceled out of it. She can still be damaged while she's flying into the ability, so you can kill her before then. But she is going to be getting into that ability. Nothing's going to stop her other than dying.
It just
on
felt
top of
bad.
that, what we're doing is we understand that that's
Like,
a huge change. That's
It's a
really,
huge
really big
buff,
change. We
and it
understand
might be a little
so what we're
OP,
doing
to
is
be
we're
honest,
making
but
that ability
it's
more of a
also
a
falls
juke
in
and less of a
line with
runaway
that
button.
declunkify.
So the movement speed
you
that you
know?
get for just going into this ability
It
is
felt
gone.
so
You don't
bad
get
to click
20%
the
anymore
button and
you're
watch
getting
your whirlpool
0%.
pop up
So
and
you
then
are
be
still
knocked
immune,
out of
you
it,
are
and you're
still
like, okay,
undamageable,
well,
untargetable.
it's not my
But
fault
you're
that the
not moving
Smite
any
servers
faster than you were
suck.
before.
You know,
But
Like-
you can still move slightly faster if you amplify this ability by using your tide.
Yeah.
But we're taking that movement speed down from 40% to 25%. So again, you're not getting any ground if you're using Whirlpool form unless you amplify the ability. So you've got to have the tide. You've got to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're not going any faster. You just got the immunity, which is still really good, by the
Yeah,
way.
it's still
Really,
very
really
good.
by the way. But we understand that this is going to be moderately controversial, but please give her a try. Play against her. Just let us know. Keep us updated on the feedback with this ability. We have tested this quite a number of times in playtests and other applicable places, and it feels good. It feels very, very good as the Charybdis player to not get interrupted out of this ability, to be able to feel like you have the chance to get away without, getting canceled over and over again. Things like
Yeah.
that have happened before, and we've seen clips upon clips upon
Frustrating,
clips of
yeah.
that. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
So we want to try to eliminate the frustration while, again, being as fair as possible. And we really hope that this is a solution that will work out for the future. Again, I know it's very scary looking. Believe me, we had a lot of discussion about this.
Yeah.
But please give it a try and let us know how you feel. But that's not it. That's not it, ladies and gentlemen. We got
Still
one more.
Still got
one
more.
more.
The Maw Hungers. This is the ultimate ability. In general, we completely understand that this ability feels a little bit clunky to play with.
It is.
We are a little bit limited, again, just due to the way the
also
character's set up and what our
widely
resources look like at
considered
the
to be the
moment,
worst
but
ultimate of Smite.
we have an absolutely goated programming team because
Alex,
they
yep.
gave us a lot of tools to work with here to make this ability feel better. So it's hard to kind of explain without getting super into the weeds of the different processes and things that happen during this ultimate to make it look as amazing as it does. But they went in there, tinkered with it, and it feels significantly better to use.
Yeah. What I would say is if you're a player that plays Charybdis a lot, you're going to be really happy about this. If you don't play Charybdis at all, now is the time to try it. It
Yeah.
feels significantly less clunky. There's no frustration point of getting interrupted when you go into your 3. It's easier to manage your tide and much more balanced in that way. That you can make the choice to use your tide for your extra speed in your 3, and your 2 now you don't have to make the decision of would I rather just be auto attacking instead
Oh,
of
no.
channeling up this wide ability. Now now,
Charybdis'
this is the
ultimate
time to
fires
actually
more
get in
properly.
And play Charybdis,
Sure hope the
if you
Minotaur
haven't
Sun
yet.
doesn't
And those
moonwalk
Charybdis mains, you'll be very happy, I hope.
Oh, what a fun
All
time
good
that
stuff.
was.
Like, what
Moonwalking
a
Minotaur
huge
Sun.
number of things
That was a
have
good time.
changed. And as somebody who likes Charybdis but can't nail auto attacks, excited to try again anyway. Even though can't hit auto
was a
attacks. That's
good
why you
time.
play tanks. 'Cause
Good
Not even to mention
time.
the Charybdis timing changes that we did last patch. as
oh
well,
yeah,
which-
Charybdis has been polished.
she's been going through the ringer, I guess, of changes, but all for the better, we hope. So please,
Yeah.
again, give her a try. Let us
She's
know
a
what you
really
think,
cool
and,
character.
yeah,
She's
enjoy.
just,
Yeah.
I mean,
Not even done
she's
with
been
this patch, by the way, but
plagued
we'll
by
continue.
Yeah, we'll get there.
clunkiness
I was
since
about
her
to say,
inception.
one more thing. So we've talked about items and gods and a lot of stuff, but now we're getting something kind of crazy. Something kind of these people over here they're designing out of their minds and trying new and incredible things. And so the header for this section is item proc pass. So y'all have made some changes to the way that item procs work, is what I've derived from this. So kind of ease me into it. What brought this
Following
on?
God,
So we've
now
set this up
proc
in a couple of
basic attack
categories,
item
right? The
effects
first
on their
category
basic
is
attacks at
attack
reduced
items.
rates.
There are certain characters due
Ooh.
to the way that their basic attacks function, the
Bake
shape, the size, the
Kajira
frequency, whatever it
and
is,
Jorn, huh?
that previously were not
Feel
allowed
like-
to proc basic attack
I
items
feel like
because it was
Bake is
deemed
probably
too
a
powerful.
Yeah.
We kind of
bigger
started
deal?
this last patch with King Arthur.
Maybe not, though.
And
Maybe
now
not.
everybody
No,
else is
probably
getting
less.
on it.
I guess the
Going
OP
under,
was
Bake Kajira,
Telkines,
Fafnir,
right?
and Caribas,
Theoretically,
all
it's just
getting
Telkines.
various levels of changes to their basic attack procking.
Ooh.
Yeah, I feel bad for our programmers. I joined the design team, and I think on the same day I asked, okay, what if Roman could proc Telkines?
Cherries is now only
And it's a
limited to
question
her
that we really
triple
haven't been
proc
able to
and
ask
not her
before,
first
because when
two
we're
autos
implementing
or
duality, we
spike
actually had to
shot.
make some new tech
That's
to
a
be able to handle
huge
this type of
cherry
thing. So we're able
buff.
to use that same tech in different ways. So it really
Damn.
unlocked a lot of possibilities here. So Jormungandr can now proc Telkines.
That's
Demonic Grip,
crazy.
Acts of Animosity. He can now also proc and get stacks.
That's the
of
biggest buff she got all
prophetic
damn
auto
day.
attacks. He could proc warrior attacks instead of
Her
having his
Kins and
ability.
Oboe is
Same
gonna
thing with
freaking
Bake
go
Kajira. Maybe he
hard.
could, clear the jungle with Mannequin's mace and
Mannequins,
things
yeah.
like that. There are a lot of possibilities
Fafnir
here. And then we were
Dragon.
just talking about Charybdis, so coming
Fafnir
back to
Dragon.
her as well. Charybdis previously had a
Yeah.
reduction on all item procs just at a base level.
Mm-hmm.
I believe even Mystical Mail was reduced by this same tech because it was just a very basic reduction. Now we're changing it to be just that triple shot is reduced by 33%, and all of the other ones, Spike Shot, which is your one, and your other auto attacks are now not reduced at all. They're back
100%.
to they're back to being 100%.
Kins is so back.
Exactly. So now
Spike
it just
Shot
feels
Cherry
so much
is
better
gonna
playing that
slap,
card, and it makes so much
dude.
more sense as well. So on top of all the Charybdis changes we did before, there's this as well, and you'll see a last god there, Fafnir in his dragon form, 25%. That's intentionally a very low number. So that's 25% is the amount of damage and healing that you're getting from these items. Think Death's Embrace on your Fafnir Dragon, healing insane amounts if you had to 100%.
Cyclopean Ring.
Cyclopean Ring, because you'd reset that cooldown quickly. Acts of Animosity, Telkines,
Yes.
all of the above. That is 25% of that, so a 75% reduction.
Yes, and he's lower than the others simply because his fire breath is just faster and more frequent, really, the procs happen. So you would be getting quite a lot of Telkines.
Fafnir
Fafnir Dragon with Telkines and Cyclopean could still be fun.
His dragon form, and
It might. I mean, 25% is not a lot, but it could still be fun. Might not be good, but it could be fun.
Insane in play tests.
nuts.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah, and it really, when we tested this the first time, it made me like, oh, that's why we've never done this before.
I get it.
But with this new tech, we can adjust it and we can
Jorm?
scale it in ways. And maybe this won't be the final
Jorm
pass, and
with
that, if there's feedback. and
Gilded
balance issues,
Arrow
we
at the
can always
start
adjust it, but now that we
into
can
an
adjust it,
immediate
we've already
Telkines
unlocked
might
whole
have
new
a
possibility.
lot of auto
Yeah.
attack
with
damage.
this next change.
I don't know how it's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
scale into
All
the
right,
late
well, I mean,
game,
you
but
just lit
very,
right into it.
very
Let's dive into
early.
the next change.
Pets.
Him
is
going
the
auto could
category.
be interesting.
Pets. So this is going to kind of be the final thing that we're talking about today. I kind of want to preamble a little bit just before we get into the pets. We know that there are some abilities that don't proc item effects. That, unfortunately, did not fall into the same tech with these guys. So there are going to be some things that might be missing here. That you're like, why doesn't this proc? Or why have you guys not gotten to this? We're getting
Pets
there.
may
We're still
proc
evaluating them.
item
We had to do a
effects?
couple extra steps to get there. It's something that we're considering for future patches. It's all going to depend on where the technology ends up. So still working through that. Be patient with us. We got a list here, though, for you that's working right now. So let's get to that list.
We're getting
So
started.
Caldear Dash is going to
we have
proc.
to kind of make a rule because there's a lot of different
Bluestone?
sorts of pets. So you're going to see
don't
the
like-
pets
I don't
divided
want
into
that.
3 different categories,
I don't
essentially.
want
You've got
that.
your single target attacks, your multi-target attacks, and your AoE attacks. So first up, a couple examples of single target attacks are Scotty's Calder. And so these are only procking ability items. They do not proc basic attack items, only ability items.
Specifically the dash, by the way.
Yes, this is Calder's dash. So when he is essentially, leveled up enough, he'll do a dash to attack someone that's on a cooldown, but it's only ever one person. So they will proc for 100% damage and heal. So Crusher will do 100%,
Heartseeker,
etc.
Bluestone, all that. Yep.
Tiamat,
Okay.
same case with Summon Beast. One target only. It's going to do 100%.
Yep. Soul Reaver, Soul Gem, Ethereal Stuff, all those
Okay.
things.
Divine
Hate
Rune.
that.
Yes.
Threatening.
Yep, lots of really fun stuff there. Let's move on to the next category, though, which is going to be multi-hits. So it's still single target, but it can bounce around or it can re-aim or anything like that. So Artemis is board charge. This is not any of the board basic attacks. It's just the charge. So they will all proc at 75% damage and heal. That's a good example of one. Another one is Vulcan's Inferno Cannon Shot. So this is every time the Inferno Cannon fires,
That's
75% damage and heal.
Yeah. Finally,
Yeah.
you can get some
Yeah, it's crazy.
anti-heal on Vulcan and be able to proc it with your turret and
Yeah, drop the
soul
turret
gem
down.
stacks every time it shoots a god and things like that. Really opening up more build possibilities and just being more creative with your builds.
That's really cool.
Maybe we should visualize what that
Yeah,
looks like for
let's
Vulcan.
take a look.
Yeah,
Let's
dive
take a
in.
look.
See
Please
what,
do.
what the turret can actually really do now.
Show us, please.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, look at all those yellow numbers. Soul gem.
This is a good time to highlight something as well because Vulcan being a magical god, having Soul Gem. Soul Gem actually, sorry, not Soul Gem. Soul Reaver has a subsequent hit reduction on it anyway. So the first hit will do 100% damage on a normal ability, and then every time after that, during that 3-second period, it will do half damage. So you have to remember as well, Vulcan's turret is 75% damage, so it's actually 75% the first time and then half of that the next time. So these are all getting reductions to be balanced in some way, and that's why this change was possible and hasn't been done before. It's because we have this tech, we can adjust it per ability and make these new rules where these multi-hit abilities like this have reductions. The AoE hits will have even greater reductions.
Which we'll get to those up next, shall we?
Yeah, dive in.
We spoke about it earlier. One of those AoEs for 50% is
Alright.
going to be
That's a lot of
Bastet,
soul
her
gem
ensnaring
stacks.
claw hit. So that circle area is what's going to be proccing items. Hera also back again
Ooh.
with Argus's Divine Shroud Aura. That's when you use the 3 when Argus is
Yeah.
out. And then Argus's Initial Slam as well coming down when you summon him. Up next, we've got Nuwa, Clay Soldier Dash. And this is a special exception being at this 50% damage because you go, Laramie, they're only ever dashing one time. Well, here's the thing. There's 3 of them. So having 100% 3 times on the same target is going to be a lot.
Pretty nutty.
A lot.
Yeah,
So
pretty
that's why she's getting a special exception. And then also on top of that, you've got Set, which has got the clone skewer.
Don't
That's
love
the
what's
skewer that's
happening
coming
right
from
here at the end of
clones,
these
not
patch
Sets.
notes.
Totally fine for Set. Any extra ones are getting this
It was
reduction.
kind
but
of an
they'll proc.
interesting patch
Again,
note.
Crusher,
It was
Heartseeker,
a hit
Bluestone,
and
whatever you
miss.
want.
It was a lot better than the last
I mean,
month's patch notes.
That's a lot of
Although
crazy, like, we
unfortunately, it
went
didn't do
over that.
anything to
And it feels
undo
like it
any
passed
of
in an
last
instant, but
month's
that's a
patch notes.
lot
So
of
all the
potential
games are
play,
going to
you know? Like,
continue to
that's-
be
yeah.
just as
I
bad
start
as they
going
have
unhit
been.
because of my abilities.
And
like,
some of
that's-
these
I don't know,
things
there's
are
a lot
not
of
going to
Vulcan
make
It
it
got
better.
even crazier behind the scenes. I'll share this
More
as well. When we
indirectly,
implemented this
but,
tech,
you know.
it was on all pets. So I'm talking arachne spiders, Erlang's dog, Tiamat's serpents, right? We had at one point each of arachne spiders procking kin size, each of them procking executioner. And so we took this tech, made it crazy, and then scaled it back from there
Yes.
to a point that we're actually happy with it.
So all of that is possible, but there are effects like that, like especially with the basic attack items and
Yes.
that's that basic attack that we are not touching at this point in time because we feel like they are just not going to function in a way that we are happy with at this point in
Yeah.
time.
So a good way to look at this as well is like certain pets have abilities, just
Yes.
like we're talking about Calder's Dash, Hera's Landing and Hera's AoE. Those are abilities on pets, so they proc ability items. We're
Yeah.
staying away from the basic attacks that would proc basic attack items for now at least.
Yes, so no nays, no spiders,
That's right.
no Erlang dogs. All of those guys are not involved in this at all. It's just the pets that have abilities.
That's correct.
You saying no nays. I have a friend who's gonna like attack me on Twitter after this now because
For the best, trust me.
Yeah, I'm
So
I'm
sorry.
sure. I'm
Sorry,
sure.
Kuzma
but
mains. not quite.
we're still rooting for you, turtle dudes. Well, shoot, that does it, I guess, huh? We did it. We talked about 11.5. Yeah, that was
It's all-
crazy.
it's all there.
Yeah, thank y'all for that. That was again, y'all have been cooking. I kind of been away for a little bit, so I came back. And last weekend and like Monday of this week, I've just been trying to catch up with all the craziness y'all do, and it's not
They
easy because y'all work
are,
hard and
Hassan,
fast.
yeah.
It is impressive. So huge shout out to y'all, and thank y'all for hanging out with us today. We are in to our 5th update of year 11. It feels like we
crazy.
were just at SWC like a week ago,
Oh,
and now we're playing alphas or early alphas for Smite 2 and
Give
talking
me some
about
Smite
the
2
fifth
info.
update
I don't
of the
think we're gonna
year,
get any
like,
Smite 2
Better and
info. I
better
think
every
it's too
time, I
soon.
feel like.
and it's going to keep getting better and better, and I hope y'all know that. So, again, thank y'all all for coming out. To close the show, PTS, y'all always know it's going to be up sooner than later, so make sure you're keeping your eye out on Twitter. We'll let y'all know when the doors open. You can get in, start testing out all this craziness. If you happen to miss anything or want to run back or want to see the numbers again, make sure to check out the update notes. You know they're going to be going up. They're going to tell you all the crazy stuff we just talked about in detail, so you can go and start theory crafting your builds and getting ready for that ranked climb with all these crazy new things going out. Also, make sure if you're interested in hanging out with the devs, getting a little more dev insight, it's not going to be today. We're not doing it after the show like we have done in the past. It's going to be on Friday. We've been doing all kinds of fun stuff. Production's always doing fun stuff on Friday, so make sure you're coming out for that, for a little dev insight. Bring your questions, start looking through everything and formulating, like, why is this way? How does this change? Why hasn't this changed? You know, feel free to bring those things in on Friday, because we're going to have the devs hanging out and talking through and answering some of those questions and kind of diving a little deeper into some of these changes and why things did or didn't happen and what it meant, and maybe more of that back-end stuff that it's a little too granular for right now, but it's really cool to hear about. So make sure to check that out on Friday. I'm going to repeat myself. I know I repeat myself a lot. Thank you so much for playing Smite 2. Like, it was so cool being able to go into Twitch and see that and see people having a blast with it. All the clips I saw on Twitter, like every time somebody tweeted at me, I don't care if it was, hey, this was, maybe work on this, or, oh, this was incredible. Like, I loved every time I was mentioned in a tweet about it, because that's feedback. That showed how passionate y'all were about helping us continue to grow this into the beautiful gym it's going to be. It already is and will continue to be, because I wholeheartedly promise it's only going to be better every time that we open it up and let people come in and try stuff out. So thank y'all again. And I think that's all the rambling that I can do. So I have no voice left.
So it wasn't like an objectively bad patch notes. I feel like the last notes that we had were genuinely maybe the worst patch notes of all time, though. So it was kind of a rock bottom. But there was some, like Equinox got an actual nerf instead of a not real nerf like it did in the bonus balance. Like, that's good. There were some like buffs and nerfs, and some of them were fine, and some of them were a lot overtuned. Like, I feel like the Oleron just went from being not played basically at all to just being banned every game because they buffed his itemization and they buffed his passive and they buffed all of his abilities all at the same time. Like, I feel like they're just asking for trouble on stuff like that. Pets proccing item effects, I feel, is just going to be a problem. I think that's just going to feel bad to play against, especially because pet behavior in Smite is so unreliable. So, like, now when you cast Tusky, not only is he standing still and not hitting people, but you're also missing out on every single proc on every single person. Like, I feel like it's just going to be even more frustrating on that front. But some of the things could be fun, like Jorah being able to proc auto effects at 50%. Because it's cut in half, most of them probably won't be OP, but it might just be like a fun meme to just like have like a fun, silly game, Probably stronger at the beginning of the game, going full meme, and then by the end of the game, you probably have to sell it because it probably sucks. So that'll be fine. But on the whole, patch is kind of hit or miss. It does look like they spent a lot of time, focusing on some other game modes, which is fine, because I think they are trying to transition Smite from being just even more casual. It does look like they want to make Smite 2 like very conquest focused. So it's like, okay, all the conquest people are going to go to Smite 2 pretty quick. And, all the Slash players can, stay in Smite 1 and the Joust players and all that stuff, which is fine, to each their own game mode. But I just feel like they're looking a little bit more, even some of the changes today, even a lot of the changes, honestly, just felt more casual oriented, like they're expecting all of the top end and competitive players to just kind of go to Smite 2 because that's like where the SPL is going to be. Well, SPL, whatever they do competitive wise and all that stuff. And that's like where the new rank system's going to be. And so it's like kind of make the game more fun for casual players, which is fine to start making that transition. I think it's maybe a little bit early to start doing that because we probably got 4 months left on, Smite 1 before, Smite 2 goes 24/7 or whatever. So it might be a little bit early to be pulling the trigger, but you can already see them kind of moving in the direction of like, let everybody in Smite be casual, let them play Arena, let them eat their cake, and then for Smite 2, we'll actually like make the game try hard, but that's fine. Thank you for supporting the Twitchiest community. If you'd like to see more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and always hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you for all your support and have a Twitchin' day, y'all.